Hey everyone, welcome back to another One More Chapter book club here with Define. I am so excited to be on here with you guys. We have a very special guest. The author of our One More Chapter book club pick for October is joining us. So, in October, we read The Chemist's Daughter by Blake Dodge, and I'm so excited to have her on with us. I'm going to go ahead and invite her on now. Hey, Kat. Hey, Sonia. Yes, Belle. Hey, you guys. Hey, Blake.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Hey. I'm so excited for tonight. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good. I am so excited to talk about this. I'm going to give us all just one more minute, let everyone settle on in. I like to usually do these by having you introduce yourself and then going into the characters and then wrapping up with a little more of the plot and things like that. Can you hear me
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, I can. I was just making sure I sent this to everybody who was interested on my end.
Amazing.
Yeah, so hello everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. This is so very special. My name is Blake Dodge. And oh my God, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Minnesota, so I grew up in this tiny Midwest town, like I think 14,000 people, which doesn't seem small by comparison, but now I live in Reno, so it's very small by comparison for that. I graduated in 2013, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do for school, and so I moved to France. And I bought a ticket, got on a plane, didn't speak any French, and so I had moved there when I was 18, and I was like, I'm just gonna learn French and drink good wine and meet fun people. And then 3 weeks later, I met my husband, and we were married like 10 months later. And we are going to be celebrating 10 years married next June. We're back in America now. And I initially had gotten the book idea for The Chemist's Daughter in France because I was on a no work visa. So I basically just, I know it was so hard. I had to just like walk around and drink wine and coffee all day. It was such a hard thing. And so my husband worked. And so I had this idea for The Chemist's Daughter. And then when I started writing it in 2021, it really, really developed so much farther than when we started. But yeah, it's a little bit about me. I have a 4.5-year-old boy who keeps me on my toes, and we live on ranch property in Nevada.
Wow. Okay. Wait, so you lived in France,
Hmm.
came up with the idea for this, but didn't start writing it until later on. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I actually had I'll make it super quick and not super sad or sappy. So here's a trigger warning for like pregnancy loss and miscarriage. Is that something that anyone is sensitive to? But so I got married at 20, and we started like trying to start our family right away. That's something we both really wanted to do. And so I got diagnosed with unexplained infertility at the ripe age of 21. They tested everything on my husband and like, oh, he's good to go, but we don't really know what's wrong because technically, like, everything's working as it should. And so we were like in the trenches pretty much right away in our marriage of just like, we hadn't lost anything, but we weren't able to get pregnant at all. And so I was like doing all these tests and surgeries and different treatments. And I was like, it's so crazy the depth of what you'll sacrifice to for like a child you've never met or the idea of a child. And so I was kind of just like, and this was just the beginning, but I was so down about it. And I was like, oh, I wonder if the roles were reversed, if it would be the same, like how much a child would sacrifice for a parent. Like, would it be the same dynamic? Would it be the same experience? And so fast forward 7 years, we had moved to the US and immigrated, and we had gone through that whole process. We had moved cross country multiple times, like COVID happened, all sorts of craziness. And then we had my son at this point, which was he was kind of this medical miracle that all the doctors were like, we don't really know why your treatment worked, but this one did. And then we had lost 5 pregnancies after him, and so we were like, I was kind of at a point mentally where it was like, oh my gosh, this is just exhausting so much. It's very heavy. And so I was like, so this was December of 2020. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. 2022. Yeah. And so January 2023, I was like, I need a break. I need to just like take a minute. And I was like, I really want a project that I am the guarantor of its completion, because a big part of infertility is like, you know, like there's no control of anything. You kind of are just like at the mercy of the doctors and the treatments, and then you do all this for a chance to maybe grow your family, and it's never guaranteed. And so I was like, you know what, I need something guaranteed. And so January was like, I'm going to give myself the year. I'm going to write the book. I had the story idea 7 years prior, and then I was like, that's the book I'm going to write. And so I sat down, and in probably like a 6 month time period, I think I had the first rough draft of it done. And so from January 2023 to December 2023 is when I published The Chemist Daughter.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. That is such an incredible story and a really beautiful way of taking such a hard time in your life and being able to create something, of course, your son, but also something else alongside of that, which is The Chemist's Daughter. Now, when you are traveling all this time, are you speaking all the different languages? Is that where?
Oh, so I've always loved linguistics. I've always found them fascinating. I did not speak a lick of French when I got to France. Like I moved the first time when I was 18, and just ate like arrogant little American 18-year-old me. I got on the plane with the dictionary, like the Oxford, the French American dictionary, and I was like, I'm totally gonna learn enough French in this 8 hour time period to like work my way around. It was such nonsense. I got to the Paris airport and was just so lost. And the Parisians were like, I'm not helping you. Like I'm no. And so when I met my husband, he spoke like very basic English, and I spoke no French. And so we basically used like Google Translate during our entire courtship because we couldn't speak the other person's language. I actually watched back our wedding video, and I was like, oh my God, my French is so horrible, like so broken. I sound like a toddler. But now I speak fluent French, and Haitian Creole, but it took, I think we always joke that like we were happily married. We had the perfect first year of marriage because we couldn't fight in the other person's language. We would like get irritated with each other,
Yeah.
and then we'd be like, I would say something in English, and he'd be like, I don't understand. And I'd be like, whatever, just forget it. It's fine. So yeah, so I've always really loved languages. I find them fascinating, but I didn't speak any until I started traveling. And then and I think it's such a disservice in like the American school system because English is an international language. So you do have a lot of like, you can go a lot of places with just English. But in Europe, when we were living there, I was like, wow, all of our friends speak like a minimum of four. And so I really was like, what an amazing way to be. So my goal has always been to be a polyglot. I was like, I have two more to get there. But yeah, when I wrote Catherine, I was like, I had read once that when you write any of your characters, it's a sliver of something you love blown up to into a full person. And so Catherine had a big, like, I've always loved like academia and linguistics like specifically. And so that's where Catherine kind of was born.
Wow. Wait, you said what did you call it?
Yeah. So a polyglot speaks 5 languages or more.
Okay, and you speak.
I speak two and a half. Like I'm
Wow,
6 months
that's
into
impressive.
learning Haitian Creole, and so I've been learning it, but which is easy because it's a French-based language. But
Easy.
um, yeah, it's pretty much like it's a simplified version of French. But yeah, I think languages are such a beautiful thing, and there's so many expressions that I have in French that I wish we had like an equivalent to in English.
Mhm.
And so when I was writing the characters, especially, I was like, I really like my husband and I have that. We had this for like it was a weird thing to navigate because I would be like, um, "Can you say I love you in English?" And he'd be like, because he'd always say it in French. He'd be like, "Je t'aime," and I was like, "Okay, but can you say it in English sometimes?" And he's like, "Yeah, but doesn't it mean more that I say it in my native language?" And I was like, "Yes, but it doesn't hold the same weight as when I hear it in my language." And it was this very weird dynamic. And so there were certain things in the books that I was like, that was a weird kind of experience to have. And I have a lot of friends that are like international couples, and that's something they live as well. Is they're like, yeah, it's interesting what you have grown up with and what carries value, but it's different for everyone. So that was something like, especially with you don't really have it so much in this one, but in book two, when you explore Maxim's character, who's Russian based, and Catherine Clare, they have kind of those language idiosyncrasies, if you will.
Yeah, I was going to ask, in this book, did you have a lot of that? Was there, because I know, of course, Catherine speaks all these languages.
Mhm.
There wasn't another one in this book yet, right? Or did I miss that?
No, no. So it's just English in this one. The whole her going under cover is that she had the Russian in the back. Like that was one of her, I
Yes.
can't even remember, like 15 languages that she speaks, something like that. So Russian she was ideal from the standpoint of like she could go and she would hear these conversations, but no, there wasn't multi languages in this. When you read Smuggler's Son, there's a lot more because you're crossing the pond, so it happens in France,
Okay.
and so you get a little bit more into that.
Now, do have to ask, so you also were you an investigative journalist? I was looking and seeing that you did work for Business Insider.
No, I don't think that was me.
Wait, that wasn't you?
No, I don't. I'm like, what? That would be amazing lore, but no, that
Oh
was
my
not me
gosh.
at all.
Wait.
No, I don't have any actually like technical education background.
Okay, that is eerie because this person was named Blake Dodge. Like it came up whenever I was looking up author Blake Dodge, and
Oh, it's funny.
and in the articles that she was writing, it was talking about this investigation into the medical, and it just connected so well that I assumed it was
Oh my
you.
gosh, that is
Yes.
eerie. No, no, that is not me.
Oh my goodness.
I
And
have a
cool.
like non I have one of the least traditional writing backgrounds. I think of any of the indie authors that I've met. I have a wine educator's diploma. Like I graduated with honors, but then I did not pursue any secondary education after this. So I have like I'm a second generation wine sommelier. My mom's a wine sommelier, and so I did that, and then I've just been self-educated ever since from that. I always thought journalism was amazing, but I didn't like life just didn't bring me towards a secondary education.
Of course, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that.
No,
That
that's
was,
okay. That's wild
yeah,
though.
you
That's
have to
wild.
look it up after. You're gonna see what I mean. It's like,
I'm just
whoa.
amazing that amazed there's another female Blake Dodge, because usually when I look up like Google
Yes.
Blake Dodge, it's always guys because that's typically a masculine name. So
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
yeah,
That's
yeah, no, it was one of those names that we always joke that my father's name is Darcy, and so he's like, I grew up with a woman's name, you had to grow up with a guy's name. And I was like, all right, it's fine now because it's very unisex. But
yes. And Belle mentioned that there is the talk of the wine in the book. Does that have to do with
yeah, yeah. So that is definitely, I was like, I spent all this money on a wine education. I might as well
might
throw
as
it in
well?
there.
How did you then
Um
go about your research for this book?
oh man, that was so I'm a huge historical fiction reader. And so originally when I had this idea, I was like, okay, I'm going to start the book. This whole plot was supposed to be in 1920. So it was supposed to be still Manhattan, but like 1920. And I started to do the research on like all of the mafia, family influence and prohibition and everything. I was like, oh dear Lord, not now. Like I will do a historical fiction book one day, but I am a reader for myself that like if something is a wild statement in a historical fiction book, I will go like not fact check, but I'll be like, "Oh, that's so fascinating." And so if they're wrong or it's made up, I feel like I'm a little disappointed. So I was like, I really would love to do historical fiction, but I don't feel like at this time I can do it justice.
Mhm.
And so I was like, so I made it in 2016 because I was like, this is my debut. I want it to feel like informed. And I was like, at least 2016 is an era that I was an adult and I kind of had like an awareness of what was going on in the world.
Wow. So then, because there was so much, that makes sense. And then you must really be into research, of course. But the science element of this, how did that come about then?
I had to have a way to make it fit. So, I love a good thriller. My mom, I'm also like a fourth generation bookworm. Like my mom's one of those people that like forever has read 200, 300 books in a year. I've never reached those limits, but she's an individual, and my grandmother and my great grandmother, like our house
Wow.
is just all very big into reading. And so when I told my mom I was going to write this book, and she was like, okay, well, what are we going for? And so, and my mother is so brilliant, but she would be the first person to be like, that's a terrible idea. Like, that's so dumb. Like, that's not going to work. And so she was like, she's like, if you're going to make someone who starts out, because my mother's very big into character arcs, which I am too. Like, I like there to be development. Which is, I have a hard time sometimes with like, contemporary romance because I as much as I love romance, and so whenever I like pitch myself, I'm like, oh, I'm a romantic thriller author, and all of my readers who have read the book, they're like, oh, it's kind of like 85-15. 85 adventure plot and then 15% romance. And I go, I feel like that's fair because I need the plot to move things and I also need the plot to change characters. And so my mom 100% was a consultant. Yes, she was my
I
oh my
love
god, she
that.
read so many drafts of this book and she is the person that was like, she was the first person to tell me that Catherine seemed boring. And so I was like,
Oh.
okay, like the first draft of Catherine, I wanted her to still feel, I don't know, like, I feel like feminine's not the right word. I wanted her to feel like soft and gentle. And so she's like, okay, but you can be soft and gentle and like so brilliant. And so I was like, oh, okay. She's like, there's, they don't have to coincide that you have to be like this severe, hardened, unkind, like tough individual to be a brilliant individual in any aspect of your life. Like you can still have softness and be, so smart. And so I did the research I had actually a chemist daughter read the chemist daughter, and she was like, I was like, please know that I made up all of the chemicals. Like nothing
Wait,
is
you
real.
really?
They're all fake. Um,
That's hilarious.
so I researched a lot from like, there was a lot of like, is this realistic whatsoever? All of my thriller author friends, I'm like, I bet the FBI can like surveillance officer that watches my Google history is just cracking up. I often am be
I
like,
didn't think of that.
at the beginning of the Google search, I'm like, for book research, for novel research. I tack it at the end because I was like, I'm not planning anything. I
Wait, that's
just
so
want to
funny.
know. Um, so yeah, so the science element of it, I just wanted her to have something that was like a little bit more pragmatic because linguistics generally feels like a very romantic study, like the study of languages, like anything art history, historic, like feels very like it felt soft to me. And so the science was a way to have her have still a tie to her father and have it be kind of a little bit more balanced. And it was also trying to tap into the side of her that was, I'm hoping everybody here has read to the end of the book because I'm about to spoil the
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah.
So I was like a way to tap into Claire too, is there was a tie to like a more pragmatic side of her, an alter that was not as soft and not as gentle as her. So the whole book, like the entire from start to finish was the inner turmoil of kind of the conflicting personalities and like the duality of, I guess, I mean, just who it is to be a human being, but also to have what she had with having an alter.
That's actually a really incredible way of talking about it because that's actually not something I know. Like the softness of the language of it all with the harshness of the science. That's a really cool fact right there. We need to talk about Catherine.
Okay, what do we need to know about Catherine?
So okay. How in the world did you write this character? So you said that you started with her being a little boring, but how did you picture the ending then in the beginning? Did you not?
So the yes and no. So actually, so the scene when I wrote Ocean, the first off, this book was never called The Chemist Daughter. It was called Ocean's Deep for a long time. Like it was,
Oh.
and the initial scene where she has, it's not the first hit, but the evening with Vern Thompson, the reporter, who she goes out with, and he ends up being one of her marks. That initially was the first scene in the book. Like that was the opening scene in the book, and then I wrote the whole book, and I was like, this feels like it's lacking, like there's not enough startup, and you do jump into it with the prologue, but like that scene was initially her completing the mark, and then she was going to, because they're in Manhattan, like she gets on a ferry boat or something like that, and then the custodians take the body, and then she is responsible for making sure that whatever mark she had drove her in the middle of the ocean, and then the body was disposed of. And so like that was the initial, like, and then she was going to get an envelope of her father's location. And so I had written the whole book with that as like the emerald was using her, and she was just doing to get coordinates to where her father was. And then I got it, and I was sat there with it, and I just wasn't happy with, I was like, it doesn't feel plot twisty enough. It doesn't feel like deep, like the depth of it didn't feel complex enough for me. And so I passed it on to my mother and my husband, and my husband he read the ending, and he goes, that seems like really predictable. And I was, he's also French, so like he says, like he's very direct,
That's
right? Like
amazing.
he's very the person that's just like, no.
Yeah.
So he read it and he goes, it feels so predictable the way you wrote it. And I was like, oh, well, it's a thriller, so it's supposed to not be. And so he was like, I think you can do better. He was like, I think you can do better. And so I sat with it for a while and I was like, okay, well, what if we tried this? And so I think on my second draft, I totally rewrote the ending and I worked backwards from it. And so Catherine did not have a Claire until probably round two of editing. So I had written it and then I was like, I'm gonna try this. We'll see. I've always really found, I think it's called oh my god, it's not called split personality disorder anymore. It's got like a
Yeah.
different politically correct term now that I'm totally blanking on.
Multiple personality?
It's not that anymore.
Well, they
It's
change it
got
to.
like a whole long acronym now, but
Yeah.
dissociative identity disorder. So it's DI, my god, identity disorder. So it's DID. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
dissociative identity disorder. And so I've always found that very interesting, but I had never done like the research on what it was. And so like, and I had like, I think the first, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Sybil. It's from like the 70s. It traumatized me as a child, but it is a multiple, it's one of those, like she is generally DID patients have like an abusive childhood or they have some kind of trauma in their childhood that is makes them make these alternate personalities to be able to manage the trauma. And so I was like, I can make that work. I could make that be it. And so, yeah, and so I had Remember Sybil, and if anyone see the modern day split with
That's what I was
James
thinking of.
McAvoy, yeah, so that's also, obviously she does not have that many. So I wanted to kind of make it like that, but not in the exact same framework. But I had done that, and then I passed the second draft on to my husband and my mom, and they were like, ooh, yes, like this is better. This is much better. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was easier because I've always kind of struggled with like I love complex characters, but I really I like making my villains villains and my protagonists protagonists. And so I was like, this was a way for me to do both. Like this was a way for me to have like the evil alter of the protagonist because I like that's something I try to work on because I've read books that I'm like, oh my god, they did this so well. But I have a hard time making my good guys bad guys. Even like long arcs where they become the villain, right? I have a hard time for that. And so I was like, this was a way that I could explore both in the same framework of like that was so neat and clean for me. And then as the series goes on, it gets a little messier.
Do you not like writing your characters like that, or you don't like reading the characters like that?
No, I love reading the characters. I just don't feel like it's a particular strong suit of
Okay.
mine. And so I feel like it feels too I've written characters. I'm writing a book right now that's a mafia cowboy romance out of nowhere. It's a psychological thriller, but
Oh, wow.
it's on a ranch. And so I'm trying to do that where I make the protagonist become the villain and I'm like I feel like people are going to see it from a mile away and I hate that feeling. I think if you're
Yes.
a thriller author, because when I read a thriller book, I don't want to be right. I literally want to be so wrong by the end of that book
Yes.
that my like I want to get whiplash from the plot twist. And so if I write something or I read something, like I will DNF books that I'm like, I saw that coming. That was boring.
Yes, this did not do that. I do my reading sprints every week on here, and someone read it and goes, I hate this book. And I said, what do you mean? And they go, I need to wait for book two because I want to have this conversation first. But she goes, I did not know what was coming. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and my heart dropped. I was like, wait, what do you mean you hate the book? What happens? But there were like little moments, and she loved the book, by the way. That was my point. But
Yeah, I think I interacted with her. She was like, she had read it, and I was like, oh, good, because that's like, you can hate the book as long as you didn't see it coming. Like honestly, you can
yeah,
hate the book as long as you were like, I did not see that one.
it was like one of those where like she loved it, and then was like, I need answers now.
Yeah,
And there were moments in the book where it was like little like hints to this future then, like the back scene. There was another one. Was there another moment where you really wanted a reader then to be like, this isn't real?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of I actually hate the unreliable narrator aspect. I don't like it
Okay.
purely because I don't I when I had got the book back from beta readers and they are
That's so
hi,
funny.
yes,
Yep.
we were chatting about you. So I got beta readers back and they were like, I don't understand what the heck is going on. I'm like, but are you gonna keep reading to find out? Because I don't, there are a couple of unreliable narrators that I'm like, if they don't wrap it up or give me enough clues throughout the whole book, it bothers me that I spent the entire 300 pages just completely confused. And so I was like, how do I make this happen where it makes enough sense that you want to keep going, or like you are catching on enough that you're like, oh, I have to read another chapter now. But sometimes I've read books personally that I'm like, I understood nothing the entire and then at the end you're like, oh, but I wasn't an enjoyable reading experience because for 300 pages I was like, what. So I tried to make this book one at least feel a little bit more like still fast paced and still had you guessing, but enough that you were like, well, now I have to find out because I kind of know where this is going, but not really where this is going.
That's what it felt like. There was a point in the beginning, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna trust this, and it's gonna end up. And I was like, you guys, we're just gonna get through this. And then it hit a point, and I went, oh, okay, we're here. And that is something that I actually enjoy in a book in like the most frustrating kind of way. And the one thing I actually didn't see coming as well was I know it was going to be like a little romancy, but I thought it was going to be Smith at one point, not Delta.
Oh, poor Smith.
Poor Smith is what?
um, yeah, so I have, so this is so a personal preference. I don't love the friends to lovers trope at
Yes.
all.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably like I tell my own personal like meet cute with my husband, and it literally is such a hallmark swept off your feet like whirlwind romance that I feel like all I like the romances that either it is not necessarily love at first sight, but so intense chemistry, connection, attraction that you and I was like, and I the nice thing about like enemies to lovers is that line is so fine. Like it's still intense feelings, right? Like it's intense feelings in a negative sense, but I really like I have such a hard time when they're like besties and then they're like, oh hey. So I try to make it really clear for Smith and Catherine that like that just wasn't the intensive feelings. And I'm surprised you were the first person I think that told me that was like, oh, I thought for Smith, because I don't think anybody else has said that to me yet.
I was like, oh, maybe he'll be the one. Because, like, she didn't even like, they didn't even talk in the beginning. And then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, poor Smith.
Yeah, poor Smith, sweet sweet Smith. Yeah, no, Delta was a character that I can't spill too much because so much happens between
Okay.
Delta and now Maxim and like between book two and book three. But Delta, he always appeared to me as like an Aaron Hotchner from Criminal Minds meets
Yes.
like a Sealy Booth from Bones. Like when I was imagining him,
Oh.
I was like, this is what he is to me. And so I he was an interesting character. I think now that I've written him, I would have made him slightly more complex of a character or had more like inner monologue. He gets a lot more screen time in book three, but he was one of like those characters that there's a lot of grumpy ex sunshine, which I'm a big fan of that combination. Um, but I think there was room to grow for him, but I do still love him as a character.
In what way do you think that he could have grown? Like, how would you have changed it?
I think I can't. Oh god, this is so hard with book three. So much happens in book three, guys.
I can't wait.
So I think I would have just made him slightly. The problem with not being like a straight up romance author is I like the plot to keep moving. So I think I probably would have sprinkled in more internal monologue to be able to kind of express his like feelings developing for Catherine, because it did feel very fast. Like I reread it not too long ago because I'm doing the promotional work for book 3 now. And so I reread both book 1 and book 2, and I was like, I felt like I got to go in so much more depth for Maxim's character. And so I was like, I think if I were to redo anything, that would be something I do, is like allow Delta's inner monologue to have more screen time.
That's funny that you say that, because it was like, as I'm thinking about it, the first half, I can definitely see what you're saying. And then I felt like the second half of the book is when we really saw Jonathan come to life.
Mm-hmm.
And like he was able to, I guess, be more of a person. And then we saw Maxim was just a plot twist and a half. I did not see that one coming.
Oh yeah, Maxim is like
I'm
he's like
confused by
Captain
him.
Hook from Once Upon a Time meets Loki without the magic powers. Like when I envisioned him,
I love that.
he yeah, and so um and like all characters are so loosely based off like people in your life. So like Delta is like my very, very French, like he's not, but like the characteristics of like the very grumpy kind of like the Grinch that stole Christmas vibes, like that went into Delta 100%, because I was like, he's so very, very serious and very down to business, and that's very important to him. And there is a loyalty there, but Maxim is 100% my like sly, sarcastic, like mischievous younger brother. And like in the like there are clips of him that I'm like, oh, that personality trait is 100% going into the book. I'm like, Maxim 100% has ADHD and is like the most sarcastic little morally gray villain to the crime family you're ever going to meet. Um, so, but it's interesting because they definitely like each book has permitted me to grow so much as an author. And like Catherine is the kind of the one, like she's my North Star for writing, because her arc is so much more subtle in the changes over the course of the 3 books. I still really do love her character, but I've read trilogies sometimes that they do quite the change up between like books 1 and 2 and 3, or however many books are in the series. And so I really wanted Catherine to be like who she is at the core, stay who she is at the core, even with so her arc is very gradual, but the men's are very um they shift quite dramatically as the books go by.
Yes. Does Catherine then, so like sometimes it's hard to picture it, because if this is an unreliable narrator, like this still happened though, right? Like,
Yeah, so yep,
okay.
so for those of you who haven't read the final chapter. So Claire is the altar that has always been there. And so Claire is like the protector, and but she is the one that gets to come out and experience the horrible thing. So she's like, it's an unreliable narrator because the memory, like when Claire comes to the surface to take the light, she is the one who's experiencing life in real time. And so when she goes back away from the light and Catherine's like primary consciousness comes, like takes back, um she kind of just has like the blackout moments, or like she describes it as like watching life underwater, or like through like as a television. So she's watching someone. I think that's the line in there. She's like, sometimes I'll have these moments where it feels like I'm watching my life as a movie.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how the two of them, the alter and the conscious, like primary consciousness, have experienced their entire life together. So everything that's happened does happen. It's just whether or not Claire had to come forward to handle the nitty gritty bit of it versus Catherine, who just couldn't cope.
Yes, and that movie quote makes so much sense now. Because I was reading it going, okay, so she doesn't know all this happened. Like something else had to have happened with her dad. But then the dad portion of it was he was doing the medical experiments on her as a child, right? And that was to,
Yes.
what was the goal of those experiments?
So, okay, I'm trying to remember because
It's
book two
okay if you
explains a
can't.
lot of this. I'm trying not to spoil anything for book two for you guys. So,
Oh, but does it all
Spence,
continue?
yeah. So
Okay.
book two is actually published. It's called The Smuggler's Son, and then book three is the completion of the trilogy, and it comes out on December 6th. So,
Okay.
yeah, so it's written. It's do I have a copy of the Emerald Cut? It's the thickest
This,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, I just have like all of my proofs of. Oh yes, I do. I just have proof copies of it, but
Yeah.
this is book three.
So pretty.
Um, so that'll be coming in December 6th. But everything else is it's done. So and book two is available on KU. But so yes, the scars on her back are from the electroshock therapy, which was one of the, like in my research, it was one of the therapies used for DID patients, was trying to, like, when you try to merge the multiple personalities, that's what they do through like hypnotism and a whole bunch of like electrical shock therapies, is they try to merge the multiple personalities down to one primary consciousness. And so that was when Dr. Spencer was aware of Claire's presence. I think that's one of the very end bits, is like she was 7 or 9 or something. And so when Dr. Spencer Whitman like catches on that Claire has, or Catherine has, an altar. So he for a long time is picking up signs, because he's a man of science, and so he's picking up signs that something's off with his daughter. And then he, gets in contact with a colleague who is intentionally like trying to get her to have just one primary consciousness. And so that is his attempt at, and that kind of delves into like my initial, so a parent would all do all these sacrifices for a child's well-being. Would a child sacrifice the same? And that was trying to explore like that end. It was like in his mind, that was a kindness to have her. I don't know why they're honking on my road. Sorry. There's like it is him trying to do what he feels is best, even though it's traumatic and horrible in every single way. So Spencer Whitman is quite the character. So much happens more, but that is kind of the basis of, that's the kind of gist of it, of where they were going. Yeah, Belle, with the lightning bolt scars. That was the electrical current treatment from back in the day.
And because I know that book two's out and things, does that cover, do we find out more information on that, or is this just kind of
Yeah.
put to bed?
So book two is another dual point of view, and it is Catherine Claire. She goes by Cece because
Yeah, that
you
makes
have
sense. Yeah.
more. There's an awareness of that there is an altar, and you have more screen time for both Catherine and Claire. So the primary consciousness and the altar in book two, and so that explains Maxim, who's the heir to the Emerald Network, and they have joined the resistance, and they are now running around Europe doing all sorts of craziness. But Claire, the altar, falls in love with the heir to the crime family, and so it's the fighting of
Wow.
Catherine, who has the primary consciousness, and then Claire, who has struggled to have time in real life, have time in the light her entire life, is now, because they're going through all these like stressful situations, Claire is coming into the light more and more, because Catherine can't handle all of the craziness that is happening. So Claire becomes more frequent in consciousness, and so she is on the run more often than not than Claire is, for with Maxim on their new adventure in Europe. And so it explores a lot more of that, but you find out more and more and more of the secrets of like kind of the origin of where everybody started in book two. And then book three is Jonathan and Maxim pitted against Catherine Claire in like a Hunger Games-esque espionage trial to decide who is the ultimate super spy. So it's
Okay, I can't wait. Wait, that's
so
so
it's like,
cool.
I call it like a love triangle of deadly proportions, because it's so much trouble. But yeah, that's the ending of the book three of the trilogy. But yeah, it was, Catherine is my favorite. I was really grateful for the people in my life who were like, she's boring, make her better. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my darndest. How about I make her be two people instead of one?
Yeah. It was so much to process at the end there. I was like, are you kidding me? So did any of the, okay, thank you for clarifying all of that. Yes, Kim, these books are so good. So then there's so much traveling going on. Is that inspired by your own travels? Like, are these real places that you've been?
Yeah, so actually, book two, the cover on it, if you look on Kindle,
Cool.
the everything takes place in the medieval castles of Loire Valley in France. And so I did. the my in-laws, we did a 10 castle tour, and we did a research trip where I went over and visited all of them, and they took us to all of these like medieval amazing castles of like the kings and queens of the past. And so I wanted it to be really, because I've actually never oh hi Kim, I've never been to Manhattan. Manhattan's the only book, like
Oh,
only location that I'm like I should go, but I've never been. And so I was like, book two, I really want to like be able to give depth to description when I write it. And so book two takes place in Western France, in France. And so, oh, thank you, Shauna. That's so kind. And so, yes, book two was, I love traveling. We've done a ton of traveling before I got married and when I got married. And so there's a lot of pretty much everything that is in book two I've seen personally. And the cover, I'm a full-time photographer for work in my daytime big girl job. And so the cover is a photo that I took on that research trip.
oh wow, you took that picture?
Yeah, so I've taken
That's
all of
amazing.
them, with the exception of the Manhattan one because I've
Yeah.
never been to Manhattan. And so the paperback covers I did myself, and then when I completed the trilogy, I commissioned art from this amazing artist who made all new special edition hardcovers. And so she redid all the covers for me, and they will be live when I publish book three. So yeah, but I did all the photography for all of it. But I love travel, and I think like a lot of readers, we like to be able to be transported. And I some of my favorite books have taken me to places that I will probably never get to visit in real life. So I love that. I'm not a fantasy reader. Um, Miss Kim, who's in the chat here, is from the East Coast, and she got me a photo that I was actually going to go into some PR while we're doing the launch for the book of it. So she was a gem. Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of travel. There's a lot of pretty much like every little bit is some weird like micro fixation that I've had at one point in my life that I was like, that's going in the book.
That's amazing. If there's one place, because you said that there's places that you might never go to, which one would you want to go to first?
Oh, so I really love like one of my favorite books is called The Bird King. It's by G.C. Wilson, and so it is in um Egypt, I believe. And so I would love to go. I have a little. And so I was like, maybe when he's grown, we'll go someday. But there's a lot of places like in the Middle East that I would love to get to visit. And I just don't see like it's in the foreseeable future for me. But I would love, there's so much history there. Egypt, Israel, many of the Middle Eastern countries. Turkey is on my list. And so, yeah, I would love, love, love to go there. I also really love The Kite Runner and pretty much everything of Khalid Hosseini's. And so I would love to be able to see in real time that. But yeah, Europe, we've traveled so much. Oh, that's in book two. I was going to say, yeah, when you went to Switzerland, but that's in book two. So the trip to Switzerland is, we've been there via train, and it was there was a lot architecturally that I was like, oh, I feel like I'm equipped enough to talk about this.
Yep. Their architecture there seems, haven't been, but I know a lot of people that have, and it seems beautiful. I did also want to go back because Belle asked if you could talk about Anastasia.
Yeah, so Anastasia, I love the name. She's actually my old boss, and she is not the Anastasia that's in the book. But I
Is
asked her
that
permission. I
that's the
was like,
mom, right?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
So Anastasia, I'm trying to remember how much I can reveal about this. So basically, I think at the end of book one, you get this. So there is the Emerald, which is one of the original crime families for the import-export business. It's like 100-year-old Russian crime smuggling network. It's called the Black Emerald. And so in the 80s, you had a split, and there was a big corruption, which happens with, the underbelly of the crime world. And so I had done a lot of research on like the mafia families. And so originally, like they were supposed to be Italian, and my mom was like, no, everyone does the Italian mob in Manhattan. Like you should do, like, what about the Russians? And I'm like, what about the Russians? I don't know anything about them. And so I did the research, and I was like, oh my God, there was so much involvement of them in the like mafia families. And so I created the Emerald Network, which is loosely based off one of the many multitude of Russian influence or like of mafia organizations and organized crime in the 20s. And so then the Doves is the resistance against the Emerald. And so the Doves it is in Russian and I cannot pronounce it, so I'm not even going to try, but it's called the Covenant of Doves. So they go by the Emerald and the Doves. And so the Doves were the people trying to get back to the original, just importing and exporting of goods and not necessarily weaponry and artillery to nations that were, had the deepest pockets. Like, they were still bad guys. They're both crime families. Like, there's no naive, like, trying to make everything good and innocent again. It's just like the Doves were trying to get back to making money, not arming, people that were going to like eliminate entire nations. And so Anastasia, so it comes back to everything being very, very connected. And so Anastasia is the mother of, like, the biological mother of Catherine, who is also the leader of the Doves. But she hasn't seen Catherine in like 15 years because Spencer Whitman has had her. And so book 2 explores really like why she ran away, why there's no memory of her, why she's so much more connected to this than she thinks she is. But yeah, Anastasia is the biological mother of Catherine Clare, and she's also the lead general of the resistance against the network. So a lot of The Smuggler's Son explains the details of that. There's a lot of backstory on that. Book 1, I kind of, whenever I do like my elevator pitch for The Chemist Daughter, I'm like, it's Casino Royale meets Divergent, because I really loved how Divergent and Hunger Games, both book 1 really lays just the foundation, and then books 2 and 3 give you the backstory. Like, they give you all of the history you need to know. Because I have read, I'm not a big fantasy reader, but I've read those types of like sci-fi or dystopian that it's like 400 pages, and I was like, I would have rather stopped and shifted like landscapes or storylines or had a break than read 400 pages of the backstory of this. So that was what The Chemist Daughter like goal was. I was like, I want to keep them fast, bingeable. So the end of it, we kind of leave you with the cliffhanger of like, what do you mean? Who's Claire? Who's Anastasia? So book 2 really like jumps into that.
Okay, because they said that Anastasia, she like, it was a car accident, I believe, that we're supposed to believe that she was involved in. And then she was brought in at the end. And I guess I have so many questions around like why she had to leave, and why, if Dr. Whitman and her end up on the same side, why they both couldn't just do it together.
Yes, I can.
You probably
Okay.
can answer that.
There's a lot that there is interconnection. Yeah. I will say Dr. Spencer Whitman, there's a lot of like, do I or do I not trust him in the entire series? Like, book 2, you're like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? And then book 3 kind of reveals where he lands on that whole spectrum of things. But so Anastasia has always been the resistance. She's always been the Doves. And so Whitman is very much like an opportunist of his allegiance and loyalty lies to whatever is most convenient for him at any given time. And so there's more on that and why they couldn't just stay the entire time. And when I was doing research too, I was like, one of like my very, very favorite, I tried to read John le Carre for those who are really into it, because I actually had never read a spy novel before I wrote this book, because I'm extremely delusional and just totally have faith in my capacities to make it up as I go along. But no, I had never read a spy novel. Very into like, the James Bond, but I had never read Ian Fleming. I had never read John le Carre, like all the classics. So I picked all those books up when I started writing this book. I was like, okay, let me read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Let me read Casino Royale. Like, I'd seen some of the movies, but I'd never read the books. And then I read like Red Sparrow. That's another one by James Matthew, who people love. And I got so bored because, and I will just say that I think they're, from the standpoint of like just in general, like men writing spy novels seems, I always describe it as like wide lens versus macro lens. And so wide lens is very much the male writing style of like everything political, socioeconomical, geographical, like they give details that are like paint the big picture. Like they paint the whole book as the big picture, right? And you have one character that's kind of running around throughout the big picture of it. And I don't love that as a writing style. And so um my writing style has always been very macro lens. So it's very like the firsthand experience and taking you as the reader to feel like you're experiencing the same thing as the character firsthand through the chaos, but not like the details of who was president and why there would be extra security and like that kind of, or there was a lot of pressure or a lot of troops in this area because of XYZ. Like that has never been relevant to me understanding a story. And so I didn't want to write like that. And so I had read Ava Glass's, which is her pen name, alias Emma. And she's like a modern day James Bond. It's called Emma Makepeace. And she did that style of writing. And I was like, wow, I'm in love. Like, this is exactly how I would want to write a spy novel. This is exactly how I would want to portray everything. And so I really had a hard, like, the whole trilogy was that focused. Like, I didn't ever want it to feel like this is exhausting reading this because I don't care. Like, and I feel like there's a lot of readers who love it, but I don't.
I don't either, and that's a really great way of putting it, is that macro versus micro. And it's not something you think about until you're reading something that you like don't like. And you're like, what in the world is this? That's too funny though that you didn't actually read one before getting into this. That is a different level of Delulu that I really respect.
Yeah. You know, like, guys, if I can give you one, if you're ever wanting to write a book, this girl wrote a spy series and never had read a spy novel. So, you know.
Like, where did that desire come from then?
I wanted it to make sense, kind of. I mean, it's a fiction, like total fictional world. Um, but I'm very like my favorite description of me ever is my father's, and he calls me his ready, shoot, aim child. So like I don't like when you take an arrow, normally you ready, aim, and then you shoot. I'm a ready, shoot, and then aim. Like I think about the things in reverse order. I did the dang thing. I wrote the draft. I was like, this is utter garbage. This is just like dumpster fire. But it made me like be able to see through to the end of what it could have been. There's so much, like my first manuscript that I printed out of The Chemist's Daughter, of the first draft, so much got cut. Like this story, I think 75% of what is here was not in the original draft. So I think, so yeah, so 25 approximate percent from the original ideas stayed.
How did you come up? Okay, so with Vern Thompson,
Mm-hmm.
was he always Jay? Or at one point was he technically someone else?
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna flip my light on because I like see the sun setting, and I'm like, I am getting so very dark. That's better.
Yeah.
So
I was slowly seeing it get dark, and I was like, I don't know.
yeah. No, it's just the sun setting over here. So Vern Thompson. So yes. So Jasper, aka Jay Lynch, is the investigative journalist, and so that is a storyline I wanted to pursue. I wanted Jonathan and Jay to be very, very different twins, but I wanted those to be Easter eggs of like, oh yeah, Jay's investigative journalist, and so I wanted the connecting of the dots to be kind of far enough apart that not even his CIA Delta, like Jonathan Lynch, could pick it out until the end. And so yeah, Jay is the apprentice to Vern Thompson, and then I don't even remember. Did I kill off the original Vern Thompson? No, yes.
I thought you did.
I think he's gone, and so that's so wild. I don't even remember, but I remember like Jay took his. Oh, you know what? I think Vern Thompson in my book dies of natural causes, and so Jay takes his spot because they're chasing a lead, and the date that he does ends up being with Catherine Clare, and he's a mark. I think the original Vern Thompson had started down the road, and the Emerald was like, nope, your name's going in an envelope, you're posing a threat to our organization. And so then Jay, unbeknownst to him, ends up in the envelope.
Okay, that's what I thought, but at one point I was like, I gotta check in on this because I did not see that one coming either, which kind of broke my heart because I was like, this is the end of Delta and Catherine.
Yeah,
And it made me but like, but then I
yes
was like,
and
is it?
no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. You have to read book two and
I
then book
need to.
three. Like either that is
Yeah.
something I can't spill because there's so much that goes. So they do end up in the book three is a love triangle of deadly proportions. So
Yeah.
there is feelings on both sides of both the men towards Catherine, and so you're just gonna have to read to find out because that is too complicated to
Yes.
explain in one word.
I will. I can't wait. And then there was one other. Oh, when you were talking about Spencer Whitman, Dr. Spencer, was that at all aside from like being like the bad part? But like, was that based off of Dr. Reed then in Criminal Minds or no?
Oh no.
Oh,
I so all of the names originally they're the original 1920s names that I had picked for them when this was still supposed to be a historical fiction novel.
hmm.
So like Lynch is an old school like it's a 20s family name. Whitman is a 20s family
Oh,
name. Yeah, so they are all of the original names I had chosen for them because they were I felt it was one of those things. I had this happen. I had this happen with book two, and but this was the first time I experienced it with book one. I was 75% done with book one, and then all of a sudden the characters became like vibrantly real in my head. Which I was like, you say that to anyone on the street, and they're gonna put you in a psych ward. But it's true. Like all of a sudden, I was
yeah.
like, oh, Catherine Clare, and I had my little profile for her, and I was like, I knew what hair color she had and eye color and how tall she was, and then I wrote the book, and then all of a sudden like I was on draft two, and then all of a sudden Jonathan Lynch and Catherine Clare became real. Like I could see them in my head. I knew who they were as people. I knew their inner thoughts, their inner monologue. And so it was easier to continue writing book two. And so, but they were like, it came to a point I was like, oh, Delta wouldn't do that. Oh, like Catherine wouldn't do that because they were just real. Like they were just real to me. And so I actually like cried a little when I wrote the end on book three because I was like, wow, these characters that I've developed that have been like just kind of running around my head for 2.5 years, like I'm saying goodbye to them. And so I was like texting my like author friends. I was like, this is par for the course, right? Like I don't need to go see someone about this, right? And they're like, oh no, that happens. That happens. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
good, good, I'm
It
glad.
makes sense because it's like they literally are part of your world. And like you can picture them at the kitchen table having a cup of coffee.
Yeah. So I was like, I know how they, yeah. And so it was that was very real to me for like everything that they went on to do. But no, Dr. Spencer Whitman, I don't know who he is in my head. But I picture him so well, but I don't have like another character that he feels based off of. I do love Spencer Reed. I think he is definitely making his way into some of my other books. The problem I have is I think everybody loves him so much that it would be hard not to feel like copycatting. Like
Yeah.
there are certain characters that in books like literature or film that are so uniquely them that it would be hard to be anything loosely inspired because I feel like it would be inauthentic. So like when I picture like for those of you who are Criminal Mind fans, like Spencer Reed is so incredibly unique to who he is, and I don't like there's not another like oh Spencer Reed seems just like this or seems just like this character. Like Spencer Reed is Spencer Reed, and so I feel like if I were to pull him into any other world, it would feel fraudulent.
That's a great that makes a lot of sense. And I also wanted to see what Belle asked. So was Delta meaning he would just lose it? That's why he didn't want to tell Drew when he realized about Vern/Jay.
So Delta's arc is sorry Jonathan, he's just Delta to me. Um and so Jonathan's arc is quite violent. And so at the end where he says I didn't lie to Drew because Catherine Whitman will be a dead woman. There is a lot that goes into that. Like when he realizes that she's responsible for Jay's death as he understands it. You fully start book two with him on the hunt for Catherine as she is now joined the resistance. So there's there's a lot to Delta's character, more so in book two and book three, but so much like he didn't tell Drew because it would have cost him his basically like authorization to continue working for the CIA. Like he would not be permitted to have like commit the actions that he fully was committed to committing, and remain an agent of his organization. So there definitely is like kind of him snapping mentally, internally, something like that.
Can't say I blame him, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So there is there's a little bit to be feared for sure from Jonathan. Like he doesn't play. That's for certain. So book two definitely goes into, and I wanted it to be feel like the first love, like when you, because Catherine is like, she's so green, right? Like she's so like, she's the prodigal daughter, and so she has, and she's brilliant, and she's child prodigy, and so she doesn't have a lot of like necessarily social skills. Like she graduated so early, and she's so and so brilliant, and so I wanted her feelings for Delta or Jonathan to feel very like falling in love for the first time. So the betrayal of him wanting to come for her and be the one to end her, to be quite heartbreaking for her, which is what kind of goes on. And like the her having to choose to like escape and run away and do the things she did to Delta is supposed to be the inner turmoil of like having fallen in love and having to betray the person that you do love for the first time.
yes, that makes a lot of sense. It's a very complicated dynamic, especially when you bring in the fact that like they did have that love for each other, but then what do you do when the one betrays the other? But also,
Mm-hmm.
does she know that she betrayed him? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the, so it's one of those, the plot twists are like Catherine, that's kind of one of the first instances where you see Catherine and her alter's dynamic kind of come out, because at the beginning, at the end of book one, I don't think Catherine is fully aware that Claire exists. I'm trying to remember when there's that realization. I think it's somewhere in the middle of book two. And
oh,
so, like Claire is fully aware that she's the alter. Like Claire, when she
yeah.
comes forward, she's aware that she's just the alter. She's the muscle. She's the person who can handle the nitty gritty. But because she only comes into the light every once in a while, she's aware that Catherine is the primary consciousness. But Catherine doesn't really recognize that Claire is the alter. She just realizes that like she has some like, she has some oh my gosh, why is my brain blanking here? It's she like it gets kind of fuzzy for her. She has like some like little fuzzy memories, but nothing's really clear, and sometimes they feel like dreams, and sometimes they feel like watching a movie. And so the dosing of Delta, like I think Claire fully, or Catherine, sorry, the primary consciousness is fully like going to poison Delta, but she doesn't know that Delta's woken up. She doesn't realize that Claire, the person who made the poison, is like made it so it wasn't actually fatal. She made it just so that it would give him enough time to get away. So Catherine fully goes to the other country, fully thinking that like she's gone. Belle says, but she saw Jay's photo. Yes, so that was one of those things that like this is slowly becoming, because Claire is coming into the light more and more. Catherine's like getting a clue that something's not quite right, but it feels like the same way that it has her entire life. But because normally, like, there is a couple of times where she's like in the very end of the chapter. Honestly, I feel like I just read this. I do this with other books too, not just my own. But like the
Oh, it's hard to keep it all straight. I get
oh yeah,
that.
so like the very end, the very last chapter is like, I had never been resentful of Catherine for her blissful ignorance when we were kids. She had brought me to life after all, created me to protect her. Everything was different now. I had tasted the light more in the past year than I had in the past 10 years prior. So like Catherine had only brought out Claire like a handful of times in the decade that Claire had been in existence in her life. And so in the year that she had been a femme fatale, she had gone undercover, Claire had just kept coming into the light every time that she had to do an assassination. And so Claire is now like, Catherine's like, why is everything fuzzy? Like, why are these memories continually, they're there, but they're not really there. And like, I'm aware that I did the thing, but it doesn't really feel like me who did the thing. So that is like when she sees Jay's photo, she does have the memory of the assassination, but not in like a clear picture. It was like, I recognize him, but I recognize as I'm someone that I ended. So
Yeah.
why this is the problem. So yeah, it keeps, and then I'm in book two, for whoever chooses to go on and read it, there is kind of this conflict of Claire being fed up with the fact that she's been hidden away as just the altar for his existence, and she wants more time in the light, and she sees, she feels like she's more deserving of time in the light because Catherine can't do anything, and she's the one who always gets things done.
Classic. Like, classic case of why are you getting the spotlight when I'm the one doing
Yeah.
all the work? um, do you have a one or two like big takeaways that you want for readers, whether it's from this book itself or the series in general that you're hoping for?
Oh man. Well, then I hope they liked it. And I promise more of it makes sense in book two and book three. I just had my editor, who I adore, finish book three and the draft, and she was like, there was nothing unanswered. So that was my goal. I was like, everything is big and complicated, but it keeps you guessing the entire time. I really appreciate anyone just taking the chance. I hope, like, I know I say this a lot of times when I'm on live with readers, but really it's readers who make not just like the dream of being able to continue, but like the every author on the face of the planet, even Stephen King's of the world, like there is such a, well, who am I to tell a story? Like, who am I to write it down? Who am I to, like, just who's going to read this? And so the people who take a chance on it, even if they don't like it, even if it's not their cup of tea, like that means so much. It means like the world, especially to indie authors, we're all very like just wearing a lot of hats. We're doing a lot of things. And so, yes, we're I'm very eternally grateful for those of you who took the chance on it, who liked it. Feel free to always like message me with questions. I've started getting like little conspiracy theories about things now, and I'm like, I'm here for it.
I love that. I'm so excited to see what conspiracy theories we all come up with.
Oh yeah, there's a few, especially when they get done with book two and they're like, I beg your pardon, what?
Oh no, another one.
Yeah, so yeah, and so for those of you sitting here, thank you for tuning in. And book three comes out in December 6th. So if you want to read book two, it's out, it's available, it's on KU, it's on Amazon platforms, and yeah, I'm so happy to have been here.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. This was an amazing conversation, and your book was amazing, and I'm so glad that you were able to join us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. And yes, make sure, oh, that's my last request. Make sure you go review on Goodreads or Amazon, anywhere. Like, even if you just put your rating, that's so important.
We'll go do that right now, actually.
Okay, I appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so great meeting you.
You too. You guys have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You too. Bye.
Hey.
Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I am so grateful for each and every one of you for being part of the One More Chapter book club. And I am going to be posting a poll tomorrow in our stories for November's pick. And again, every other month we do these amazing indie author highlights, so we get to meet amazing authors like Blake Dodge. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you all later. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Oh, I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. This is the best. Have an amazing night, everyone. Bye, you guys.